I'm here with Cole, Patty, and Dennis with Comeback Yoga, and I'm going to put you guys on the spot right away. Let's go around, introduce yourself, and say your favorite yoga pose. I don't know any, so they're all going to sound awesome to me. Let's start with Dennis here. Our mission here on the Veterans Voice podcast is to remind you all that you're not alone. As you hear through the stories of our guests each and every week, we have all struggled, we have all turned to poor outlets to cope with life, and we have all felt alone at times. But these are the reasons we need to all be there for one another within the veteran community, a community whose voice is needed in America more than ever. This is the Veterans Voice podcast, and this is a reminder that you're not alone.
USAA is proudly celebrating 100 years of serving the military community. It was a group of soldiers who launched USAA in 1922 by joining together to insure each other's vehicles when no one else would. Since then, USAA has grown to more than 13 million members strong. And through it all, one thing has remained. USAA is still serving the military community and their families. Find out more at usaa.com/100.
Yeah, I'm Dennis Soria. Favorite yoga pose is downward dog. Just stretch out the hamstrings and strengthen out the shoulders. Nice. It really gets me going and gets things started. And it's a great rest position. So I like that one.
I like it. Patty?
Yeah. I think especially early in the morning, I enjoy something that's called plow pose. It just it's a stretch that can really get up into the connective tissue, into the neck, and even the scalp and the shoulders in a way that just feels so juicy and really any time of day. But that's kind of my go-to, like deep stretch.
Plow pose.
Plow pose.
Like it.
Nice.
Cole?
My name's Cole. I think my favorite yoga pose is always changing, but right now I'd probably say a good side stretch.
Side stretch.
Yeah.
So downward dog, plow pose, side stretch. Are they like always developing new yoga poses, or is it kind of repetitive?
Yeah, well, it's always new for me because every class there's always something different. So I'm really glad that the instructors are able to kind of bring new things in every single time.
Yeah, for sure. Huh. I was just curious. All right. Like I said, Comeback Yoga is your guys' organization here. Cole, you're a staff member. Patty, you're a teacher. And Dennis, you're a student. So let's start with Cole here. Tell me a little bit about Comeback Yoga. I know you guys are a nonprofit out of Denver, and your whole mission is to provide yoga services or yoga classes to service members free of charge, completely mobile. So you guys travel to the veteran all across Colorado, or is it nationwide? Or
Yeah, so we're Colorado based, which
Okay.
means we're mostly in the Front Range, and we have a couple classes in the Grand Junction and Edwards area as well in the mountains. And then we're 7 days a week online.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's dive deep into Comeback Yoga. What are you guys all about?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of did a great job right there. But in general, it's exactly what we do is we really try to bring trauma-informed and scientific-based and military-aware yoga to this community. Those of us who have been practicing yoga for a while just know that there's a lot of benefits that folks can receive from the practice, and specifically folks who are achy in their body or have some tenderness in their muscle tissues or anything like that, as well as folks who are dealing with something like PTSD. So we try to meet them where they are, both physically, like literally we're going to places like VFWs and Elks Lodges and places like that are just a little bit less traditional yoga spaces, and also then meeting them where they are in their body and in their mind.
For sure. And where they are literally.
Literally.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
So you said trauma-informed yoga. That's kind of what I want to dive deep into right off the bat. So there's many benefits of yoga, I presume. So physical, mental, and then how do you incorporate that into trauma-informed yoga? Let's just go right into it.
Yeah.
Open format.
First of all, it gets me out of the house, so which is great. Just getting an excuse to be able to go out and do something. Because my wife and I, we used to practice yoga when we before we moved out here to Colorado. And it was just something that we did. It was something that was really nice. It was right by our house. And then when we're doing it, and including here, when we do it here, it gets you up and moving. And then early in the morning when we do our practices, it's very therapeutic. It gets you to think only on what you're doing right now. And what you're doing right now is breathing, and you're moving your body. When you're breathing, you're moving your body. You're going to get maybe sore, or you're going to start thinking about certain things. But most of the time, you're just breathing and moving your body. And it's such a great thing to be able to do that once a week and do it regularly and do it with the comeback yoga. It's been a great process, and I'm glad that they're able to do it for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said breathing. I did look up some yoga terminology. Is it pranayama or prana? That's like breathing.
Pranayama,
right?
you had it.
What is that? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So pranayama translates to breath work.
Okay.
And so it's us using our breath in particular ways, which will help navigate the nervous system either into like an up-regulated space or a down-regulated space. And in comeback yoga, we're going to focus mostly on that down-regulated space.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I piggyback on
Please.
What Cole just described? And she was explaining what pranayama is, and I think it can be to maybe someone who's hearing it for the first time. I know for me, when I first heard the terminology breath work, it just felt like white noise. Like, oh, cool. What is that? And what, upregulate and downregulate. So I could speak to my personal experience and where I really like bringing in breath work into my day. I know for me, I'm someone I'm trying to drink less caffeine, right? And so, but first thing in the morning, waking up, I generally, especially after a rough night's sleep, I'm going to want to gravitate and just do the thing I know. Something I can do to, as Cole was saying, upregulate the nervous system and kind of not trick my body into being in a similar state, but I'm actually activating my body into a more alert state. In trauma-informed terminology, they would say a more aroused state. My nervous system is more aroused, and which I can feel a little more alert and focused. So kind of mimicking the experience one might have with caffeine. There's certain breath patterns I can do even just for 3 or 4 minutes that quickly tell my system to start utilizing energy and increasing blood flow in my body. And it's all done just seated. It's just, certain inhales for certain counts and exhales for other counts. So it can feel super simple, and like it wouldn't be a super powerful thing, but it's actually one of the most effective tools I can leverage in my day to help influence how my body's feeling. And conversely, we can do the same thing if we're feeling too activated. So even maybe on the days where I do have a lot of caffeine and I want to help, like, oof, man, I just need to like chill out and get some of these jitters out. There's certain breath patterns that we can use to help, as Cole was saying, down-regulate the nervous system. So coming out of that sense of like, I can't focus, and coming back out into the body, there's certain breath patterns we can do, certain long exhale counts that can really show our body and create the experience in our body of safety and groundedness that can be kind of hard to achieve. Just like, I don't think we can really think our way into those states, or at least into the down-regulated state. And so utilizing the breath and the pranayama can be, it's a really impactful practice,
yes.
I've found personally.
Something like actually physiological you're doing to change your state rather than mental. I'm a little familiar, spent a lot of time in special operations, which is a very chaotic environment. They taught us a few things, like, now that you're saying it, I'm putting terminology to what they taught me, up-regulating or down-regulating your nervous system. So quick inhales followed by slow exhales. So maybe like 2 in, 4 out over a period of time would slow you down and get you more focused, where vice versa, if you do slow inhale and then fast exhale, that would speed you up. Is that kind of accurate? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow. So how do you guys incorporate that through like a yoga session, like into poses and things like that?
Yeah, so that kind of depends on the teacher. But there's always some form of breath work throughout the practice. So usually we just start with simple breath awareness, because I don't know about you, but for me, I often forget that I'm even breathing. So
Same.
A lot of times it's just that first step of like, oh, I'm breathing. And then also, what are kind of some of the things that I'm noticing about my breath? Am I breathing fast? Am I breathing slow? And once we have that kind of guidepost of, okay, this is how I'm breathing, then we can do some little bit of education around what we just talked about. If we were to speed our inhale up or elongate our exhale, that might change our experience. So for instance, in our morning classes that are at Mount Carmel, I can imagine that keeping more of a focus on the inhale is going to be helpful, because everybody's coming right from sleep or foggy time of maybe trying to sleep and not actually sleeping. But then in our evening classes, we're going to focus a little bit more on the exhale so that we can find that sense of calm.
This stuff is so useful, and I feel like it's very underrated, especially for like PTSD suffering people. Like breath work, you can calm down like in 30 seconds to a minute. Maybe not a drastic amount, but it's a start to like get you spiraling in a better direction if you're spiraling. So yeah, that's super interesting. When do you guys do classes at Mount Carmel?
8:30 every Sunday.
Every Sunday?
Every Sunday.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And we're about to start a second class on Thursday afternoons, actually.
Okay. And we've never had you guys on yet.
Not
Wow.
yet. Nope.
Huh.
So one of the questions you asked, and I think we only kind of dove in a little bit, is then where do we use it in the practice? So then as we're moving and doing different poses, we'll integrate breath work so that when your body is in a place of challenge, you also can still learn to breathe through it, so that you're learning that you have the capacity to move through something challenging and regulate your experience through it. And I think what I often hear is that that's a really different experience for folks, because we're used to going through something challenging, holding our breath, and just pushing through it. And so this is changing the way the nervous system understands moving through challenge, so that we're dealing with it in the moment instead of pushing it off to the side for later.
Yeah, especially things like stretching. Like you asked me to touch my toes, I'm gonna like amp myself up and then go for it, which is not what you should do. You should like breathe through it and relax. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I know as a person who practices, just being reminded to breathe kind of brings that focus back into what you're doing right then and there. It doesn't allow your head to kind of spread out and think about all the other things you have to do during the day or whatever it is that you're doing. The breathing just kind of brings you back to center, brings that focus back in, and it allows you to kind of just like, okay, this is the thing in front of me. This is what I got to do, and this is what I'm going to do.
Have you specifically seen correlation between learning to do this through yoga and then applying it to other aspects of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in cybersecurity. So a lot of the things that I do, it's very, it's you really do worry about the thing that could happen, because everything's about the defensive side of things, and you want to make sure that whatever you're building, whatever you're structuring, is the most secure for whatever your customer, whatever your organization needs. So when I was working on different policies or different whatever I was working on, being able to use that breath to be like, okay, let me just focus on this one thing that's in front of me, and not worry about the other tasks that I need to do that later on that's due in a week, in 2 weeks. What's this big project that I need to plan out for the next 3 months that's due in the quarter ending? So thinking of like that way and bringing that focus in, bringing that breathing in, it really allows you to kind of calm down, reset, and just kind of move forward in the right direction.
So you're an Army veteran. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that? Was yoga something you were doing in the Army too?
Yeah. So spent 9 years in the Army, employed 2 different areas. I did IT. So I was a network guy, S6 shop. Worked in multiple different organizations, strategic, tactical, special operations. And I found yoga maybe about halfway through my time in service. And at first I was like, okay, this is a great way to stretch and build up my core or whatever it is. And so I can do great in my PT tests, whatever. And as I was going through that initial practice, I was seeing it was a lot more than that. It was a lot more than just the physical aspect. It was more the mental aspect. So I was looking forward to doing yoga. PCS from that place went to somewhere else, and I was actively looking for another yoga area. And we did. My then girlfriend, now wife, we found one that was right by our house, and we were able to use them early in the morning. And I think it was like hot yoga, so it was tough.
Sure.
100-degree room in North Carolina with
Wow.
the added humidity in there. So, and we were able to use it there, and it just helps you so much with the mental aspect of a lot of things, not just the physical, but definitely the mental side.
Do you think that's something they should teach in the Army? I've always said this. I'm an avid meditator, and I'm like, they should teach things to relax, which they don't. They don't teach you how to stretch. They don't teach you how to run. They don't really teach you how to do anything except go.
Just do it, yeah.
So I'm like, why isn't like meditation or yoga or just proper stretching part of basic training? I don't know.
Yeah, so I remember, at least in the Army, there was that master resilience trainer. I went through that, and it was good. It's kind of like a mental exercise that you can do. But there was another program that it was just like a side thing. They're like, oh, we want volunteers if who wants to do it, on the base I was at in Fort Bragg. And one of the things that I just took out of it was breath work. So they taught you how to, okay, if you're in a situation where you just need to take a second, you need to figure out you're overstimulated. You need to just deep breath in 4 seconds, deep breath out 4 seconds, and just do that. Keep doing that for about a minute. And after that minute, you're just like, oh, okay, this is fine. Yeah. And a prime example where it was helpful for me was I went to air assault school, and day 0, they do the ruck marcher in the morning, inspections, they smoke you, and then you got to do an obstacle course. And while you're doing an obstacle course, they're smoking you, which means that they're making you do push-ups, squats, you're running back and forth, you're holding different positions. And so I remember this one obstacle that I needed to do was kind of you jump from one beam to another beam into a rope or something. I don't really remember. It's been several years, but right when we're all lined up waiting for it and I was waiting for my turn, I was like, I'm not going to do this. If I fail this, I'm going to drop me from this course. I got to go back to my unit. They're going to, think of me negatively. So I was just like panicking. And I was like, okay, let me just breathe. Let me just breathe it out, breathe it out, breathe it out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. So I did that exercise and then got up to the obstacle. Heart rate was low. Was able to focus. All right, let me get this, that. All right, I'm done. Moved on to the next one. And
Nice.
felt good to okay, I didn't need to panic. And just because I did panic, I was able to bring myself back. And that was really, really helpful to know that I could bring myself back.
For sure. So you started your yoga journey in the military. And would you say you've kind of pushed the gas on that since you've gotten out?
Yeah. So it's been a lot more stable. Being able to kind of stay regular to the practices because you travel a lot, you get sent out different places, so it breaks up the pattern that you might have in a daily routines. So being able to kind of me being out as a veteran and having the combat yoga and having the officer services every week here, it's great to know that okay, I'll just need to show up on Sunday morning every day, same time, and I get to do my yoga.
Yeah, keep that structure just like in the military. I like it. So how did you guys get involved in yoga in general or with comeback yoga? You guys can tell as much of your journey as you'd like.
So I think so this is Patty. My first exploration with yoga was actually back in college. So now this is about 13 years ago now. And I have a distinct memory of walking out of the first class because I was so mad. I don't remember why I was so angry, but I think I made it halfway through. I just walked out. I was like, this is stupid. I don't like this. And fast forward 12 years and I'm teaching, right? But isn't that kind of how we hear it going a lot of the time? We have that first encounter, that first experience that's really triggering or activating. And then, we ultimately find our way back to the thing. I think at the time when I started re-engaging with it in the years after that, it was to supplement my rock climbing, so strengthening mobility, flexibility. And then in my, about 5 years ago now, I had moved to Boise, Idaho. And at that time, I heard about a yoga teacher training that was happening locally. And I joined not even necessarily wanting to teach. I just wanted to deepen my own practice and have that experience. And then sure enough, in the years following, it became very clear to me that yoga was really supporting me in my own healing and my own growth. I had been I think probably working with a pretty dysregulated nervous system for most of my life and just didn't have language or awareness to understand why that was or how much that was impacting my lived experience. And so over time, I really started relying on yoga to help me get back into my body. So Taylor, I heard you say that you said you're a meditator, a consistent meditator. That's a practice that hasn't felt very accessible to me. My experience, we were talking off camera beforehand, and you had suggested that, it's not always easy to just sit in silence, and that's been my experience. And so I used to feel a lot of guilt and shame around that, and like, oh, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? And then through the yoga education, I began to learn about nervous system health and just how impactful that can be in our everyday lived experience and how much that can inform what does feel easy and accessible to us and what things just weirdly feel strangely challenging and really inaccessible. And so for me, yoga has been a really helpful way of getting back into my body, out of the head, and dropping into the sensation I'm feeling in my body. Being continuing to move and breathe together has felt really supportive for me. Whereas something like, sitting in stillness for half an hour with, as you say, like no background noise or no sound, doesn't always feel accessible to my body, right? And so I think for me, really just leaning into accepting that that's what my body needs at this time, rather than forcing it into a space that it doesn't really feel like it's able to open up and relax, really gave me a new avenue to explore my own healing and development. So that's why I'm super passionate about sharing it with others, but it's also just a really rich tool to have.
Yeah. If you don't mind, would you mind expanding on why you think you walked out of that first class? Because maybe we have some listeners that want to get involved and they might experience the same thing. So maybe you've done some reflection on that.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually haven't done much reflection on it, so I appreciate the question, because I'm like, oh, why did that happen? I think what's apparent to me right off the cuff is that I've historically not had a very easy time. Let's say like taking. I think it's not just taking orders from others. It's something about feeling like I don't have an option to leave and taking orders, right? So that, tracking back on that, I'm okay, I could see that probably being present. I would have not had any awareness of that at the time. That's something I'm aware of now. I think I'm also aware at that time, I'd imagine like many listeners, when I was growing up personally, I wasn't ever really modeled what anger expression looked like in a way that was healthy or safe. And so I think, as I grew up, I learned to, Cole kind of touched on it earlier, just the way to get through something challenging was just push it down and repress it, stop breathing. And I think at that time, I was likely sitting on a lot of repressed anger and I just had no awareness and no idea. So it doesn't surprise me now to look back on that and to see that experience like, okay, like that was pretty close to the surface, I think, for most of my life. And I just had no idea. If you had asked me at the time, I would have told you like, I'm never angry. I'm like a really happy person. But that's just because I think my belief is that at that time, I really had no concept that I had anger and I had no way to express it safely. And so I think in hindsight, I could see those pieces informing that experience. I can't really remember it super clearly. I just remember the room was super, super full of people. And I think maybe what my mind said, like, I can just be doing something more productive than this. Like, this is stupid. And I just got up and left.
That makes sense. Something I was just curious because in the like meditation world, someone like gets involved and they like try and meditate for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And like one of two things happen. I don't know, really only one thing usually happens. They like think more than they've ever thought in like months or ever usually. And it's a lot to handle. Or yeah, I guess one of two things. So either that or they feel like they're wasting time, like you said. Like there's so many better things I could be doing than sitting still for 20 minutes, or in your guys' case, doing yoga for 20 minutes. And I was actually going to ask you guys, we can put this back up in an open format. What would you say to people who don't have time to do practices such as yoga or meditation or things like that? Because we live in a very chaotic, busy world now, and people just say they don't have time. I don't have time to 10 minutes, 20 minutes stretching poses or meditating and things like that. So do you guys have an input on that?
Yeah, I mean, we have classes that are 5 minutes long on YouTube. So
Yeah.
if you getting to a space where yoga is happening is the hindrance, well, we have the online format. And then if time is the constraint, we have classes that are short and long, and you can kind of choose what's the right fit for you. So we try to make it as accessible as possible because, yeah, we all live in those busy lives that can't necessarily cut out a whole hour or an hour and a half to get there and then go do the yoga and then come back or sit for 30 minutes. That even that small amount of time done more consistently can create a large impact on your day-to-day experience.
For sure. Yeah, I just hear people say a lot like either I don't have time, or then like the 5-10 minute meditation or yoga session, it's like, well, what's the point? It's only 5-10 minutes. So my belief is that people see the benefit of yoga or meditation or things like that, just practices in general where the intent is to calm down and better yourself. And there's a lot of resistance towards it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
It is. And I think this is actually a place where I feel like the principles and background of meditation and yoga, as well as the mindset of the military, are similar, is that there is a really strong component of discipline that you get the benefits out if you can stay consistent.
Sure.
And consistency is variable, right? And that's where we see a difference between trauma-informed yoga and maybe a more traditional experience, that we do rely on discipline because you got to be able to come back to be able to continue to experience that and to feel it, because one go and you might feel a little something, or you might have an experience like Patty had. So you kind of have to be able to persevere through some of that first level of discomfort. And then after that, that's when the benefits show up. But I had some thoughts, but they went away. So that's a probably good stop point.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I use Patty's story as some examples of trauma-informed yoga, though, so that we can highlight some of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So some of the things that Patty was mentioning in her story of not necessarily wanting to come back, she mentioned it could have been because she didn't like being told what was happening or what she was supposed to do. She didn't have the belief that she could leave the space and that the room was overcrowded. So those two things are part of what we do with a trauma-informed yoga class. And specifically with comeback yoga, we're looking at how many people can literally fit in this room versus how many people can we smush into this room. So our classes are smaller by design so that we can really, truly meet the people who are showing up and be able to navigate some of those things that are a little bit more activating. We often say at the very beginning of class, like, here's the exit. Know where you can leave. know that there's a window behind me. So we really do a clear orientation to the space so that the person who is hypervigilant is the word we would use in trauma-informed yoga, of overactivated and constantly looking for where the danger is, that they know that, okay, I don't have to stay here if I don't want to. And that my teacher gave me permission to leave if I want to. Cool. And sometimes they leave, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third part was the being told what to do. And so we do use pretty direct cueing when we're working with military populations, because that's what you all have been learned to listen to. So we do use a little bit more of that, but we also try to soften the language just a tiny bit. Not so much that it feels mushy and uncontrolled, but it might be like, you could choose to do this, or you could choose to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And for folks, myself included, not from I haven't had military experience, so not from that experience, but from just living, I have noticed that I always want to do what I think the person in charge is telling me to do. And I'm supposed to do it the right way. And I have to push myself the hardest that I can. And so all of those things show up for me. And so when I'm told that I have to do something, but my body or my mind is telling me, actually, this is not the right fit for me, I'm going to do it anyways. And that's going to be a whole complex in my brain and in my body about how I'm supposed to manage this. So when I'm told to have permission, or that I have permission to do one thing or another, I may not realize that it's having an effect on me, but there is this calming down of the nervous system where it's like, oh, I don't have to do the hardest version, or I could choose to do the hardest version, and that's the right choice for me today. Or today it's not that version, and actually I want to take it easy because I went on a run, or my back hurts because I decided to jump out of an airplane for a career, whatever it might be.
I think that's really an intelligent way to run a yoga class, because anytime you're starting something new, whether it's yoga or skydiving, you need to kind of be aware of everything. So it might be nerve-wracking. And even if it's as simple as doing yoga poses, it still could be very intimidating. So I think that's awesome that you guys do that. But yeah, when we were speaking on the phone, you said you started 10 years ago with the VA as an instructor.
So the organization started 10 years ago with the VA. So we've been around for 10 years, and we started at the regional hospital that is not the RMR, but the one that was there previously. And myself, I've been teaching this for about 15 years.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
15 years.
15 years doing this thing.
How'd you start 15 years ago?
It's a long story. Y'all ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
You get comfy.
So I've been practicing since I was 16 years old, and similar to what I hear often, and a little bit similar to Patty's, is that there's a little bit of what it offered me physically. I was in a swim team, and my coach decided that we should do warm-ups as a yoga thing, and so I had to guide yoga when I was 16 years old. And I just really loved that I felt strong in it, and that I had the capacity to do something and lead others in something that helped their body. So that was really cool. And for a long time, I would say for the next 10-ish years, it kind of remained at that level of interest where it was like, this is cool. I like to do it when I can. I would drop into yoga classes on occasion when I could afford them, because yoga is sometimes expensive. So I would drop into a class, and they were all over the spectrum of really, really woo-y yoga classes or really, really fitness-based classes. And I didn't really get a feel for what this all was. But I then started working for an organization that worked with women experiencing violence. So intimate partner violence of whatever form. And one of my roles was to reach out to a group of women who had been accessing our yoga program, of which a teacher was volunteering their time, and talk to the women who were attending that to let them know that we had to cancel the program. And so in those phone calls, I remember there was this one woman who she would just walk into the center, and she was completely withdrawn. I couldn't connect with her at all, because she would pretty much just give me her name and go sit down and then go to her session and then come back and leave. And so there was no interaction, and she felt just really disconnected. And I had to call her and let her know about this program. And in that 5-minute conversation, I heard her say more things than I had ever heard her say. And what she basically said was, the only place that I have ever felt connected to my body in a way that feels safe is the time that I'm on my yoga mat. And I left that phone call, and I had to sit back for a moment and say, okay, so this thing that I think is cool and that I dip in and out of, and I definitely feel some benefits for, there's something more to it, and I have to investigate what that is. And so I did. I started looking into what is it about this yoga stuff that helps folks feel more connected to themselves and live more fully as who they are. and who can find that moment of quiet in a busy, busy mind.
So what is it?
What's the
thing?
magic?
Yeah.
What's the trick? Well, it's not one thing, right? But what we do know is that yoga is created out of this experience of understanding the nervous system, and that we tend to live in a world where we're not connected to ourselves for all the reasons that we know, whether it's because we went through basic training and it's trained out of us, or because we grew up in a home where we weren't taught ways of integrating all forms of emotion in a way that feels safe, or just all life stuff, right? So we experience all those things, and yoga brings us to the present moment and helps us remember that this is where we have control, right here and right now. And when we come back to the present moment, there's this, like, I call it the magic pause, but it's just a pause. We get this pause from whatever our normal patterns are to say, oh, I can be quiet for a moment. And every time we come back to a place that feels a little bit different than the normal way we're running through things can sometimes remind us that whatever our life experience out there is, that we do have places where we can find control and breathe, and not control in a push through kind of way, but in a control that feels really steady and stable within ourselves.
So you kind of touched on it slightly, but maybe you guys have like some recent examples about how this type of work has helped you in your day-to-day life. Maybe it's like a specific example or just examples that happen all the time. Like I'll give one for meditation. I struggle with being in crowds. I just feel very unsafe and out of control. So I will not close my eyes, but like zone out on something specifically and do like 5 deep breaths in, 5 deep breaths out. Well, it's like 5 in, 5 out, 5 times. It's like my kind of thing. So yeah, do you guys have anything like that? How this helps you day-to-day life?
I can take a swing at that. It's not going to be maybe as concrete and singular as an example as you might be asking for, but I think as a theme, the practice of yoga has really supported me, and I almost think of it as like mapping my nervous system and mapping and better understanding how my system interacts with not just the world around me, but the activities that I put it through. And so it's offered me a deeper insight into like what my body needs, and then also perhaps more importantly, what I think it needs, and then the difference between that and what it's actually ready for. And so I think I had a fairly recent experience that I think had I had it even a year ago, I would have missed it, but it felt really profound because I was able to understand what was actually going on with all of this, excuse me, I'd say like the landscape I've been building, the landscape of awareness that yoga has helped me to build. And it was just that I was climbing and I had a day where I was trying much harder than usual. And I had never appreciated before that day how even really intense activation of the body can be dysregulating for the body. And so it really changed my perspective on how to engage with. So for in this context, the example is rock climbing, and that's the sport that I choose to engage with, and recognizing like, whoa, there are still some degrees of intensity that don't feel safe for my body. I don't need to, and kind of contrary to the maybe popular beliefs and suggestions that I personally hear in the world of like self-help, personal growth, development, fitness is like push through, try hard, keep pushing. I had a really real response to that. I went home and I could tell I was really dysregulated. I needed to, reach for things to help regulate. And so I think just even having the awareness that my body has limits, more isn't necessarily always better, was really pivotal for me. And having that singular experience of like, whoa, it actually doesn't take as much as I thought to push my nervous system out of what I thought was, just accessible or okay, right? But again, had that happened a year ago, I think I probably would have missed it. I wouldn't have caught that. That was the experience that triggered that. So to go back to your question, how does this help? I think it just continues to help me get to know my body's needs better and better. And it shows up in a lot of different ways, but that felt like the easiest example to reach for because that was recent enough.
So you're more aware of like your state, your nervous system state. Like let's say you have a stressful day or you just have a lot going on and you go to do a yoga session. Do you find it like harder sometimes if you're very upregulated versus in a calm state of mind?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And also that's a super good question. And I appreciate that because it also highlights the reality that we have a different experience day to day today. And to have an expectation that my practice will feel the same to me today as it did yesterday can be at the least counterproductive and even harmful, I would say, if we really hold ourselves to a married expectation like that. It just doesn't reflect the reality of the body, which is dynamic. It's always changing. Our internal experience needs to shift from day to day, right? So to be in balance, balance is dynamic. It's not static. And so I appreciate that question.
Yeah, you're taking each session for what it is that day, but you're also, reaping the benefits of years of doing it. So like each session is different, and you need to take it seriously, but you have the benefits of doing it for years and years. So, that's interesting. I just like hearing this perspective. I only started meditating about 9 months ago, so I'm still very new to it. But I have times when I sit down to meditate, and I know I'm like stressed out as if I get really itchy. I'm like, oh, gotta itch. No, just sit still, calm down, just breathe, do my 5 in, 5 out. That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of. I'm definitely gonna come to you guys' Sunday class when I can. I'm usually camping every weekend though, but if I'm here on a Sunday morning, I'm definitely gonna come. So any listeners out there that want to get involved with yoga, definitely come by Mount Carmel. You said 8:30 Sundays.
8:30 at Sundays.
And trying to move to Thursdays.
We'll hopefully have both.
Add Thursdays.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Colorado Computer Support. Imagine never having to worry about your information systems ever again. Colorado Computer Support, the exclusive Veterans Voice technology partner meeting all of our computing needs. Colorado Computer Support is veteran-owned. They're your team for innovative, collaborative IT services and solutions to enhance and support your Colorado business. When you need IT services to keep your business going, make sure the Colorado Computer Support team is on your team. Call 719-355-2440. To learn more, that's 719-355-2440.
The Veterans Voice is sponsored in part by Optum and is produced in the Optum Podcast Studio. Optum and Mountain View Medical Group offer 15 clinics throughout the Pikes Peak region. Their primary and specialty care doctors provide quality, patient-centered care backed by Optum's industry-leading health services and technology. They're dedicated to helping our community live healthier while keeping care affordable. Visit optum.com/Colorado to learn more and schedule your appointment today. Well, I like asking this question to people who are passionate about anything. So you guys are passionate about yoga. Is there any passions you guys had early in life? And this is completely open-ended, whoever wants to answer. Passions you had early in life that you thought would be part of your life forever, but are no longer, and they're just a pastime, and maybe they got replaced with yoga, or maybe they had to get let go so that you could pursue yoga, anything like that? Like I was into all kinds of weird things as like a teenager in my early 20s, and now I'm like meditating. I'm like, what? I definitely had to let some stuff go to get this like new relaxed state of mind. So what do you guys got?
I know I used to ruck a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That was just always my go-to exercise because I wasn't really a runner.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if I need to get cardio and I need to, work on my legs. So I was like, I'm gonna go ruck, and still ruck sometimes, but definitely not like I did before. So being able to bring in yoga to kind of help support my back from all the weight,
for sure,
and the miles on the feet. So that helps out a lot.
Yeah, rucking is really not good for you.
Oh.
Holy cow. I just did a 30K for Memorial Day, and I haven't rucked in like years, but it was for the SF Foundation. So I was like, I'll do it. You carry 30 pounds of dry goods, and then you donate it at the end.
Yeah.
So like it's a good cause. I'll do it. Man, mile 10, I was destroyed.
Was that the Norwegian?
Yeah, it's the same one.
Yeah.
But yeah, rucking's not good. But yeah, replacing something like that keeps you very upregulated with something that keeps you calm. That's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got anything?
I think it's not so much that I had to let something go, but I think kind of like what Patty was saying is by practicing yoga more and becoming more aware of what was going on in my own body and my own nervous system, it helped me make choices that I was like, oh, I do get something from this. Like I get a rush from, whatever it was. And to go, oh, actually, you know what I need is something really different. Or, I'm getting older. My body is changing. And so if my body is changing and I'm getting aches and pains that I didn't have earlier, I can't do the same type of hiking or the same type of experiences that I used to. But yoga's kind of taught me, but I can do this instead. Mm-hmm. Or I can, and it doesn't mean getting rid of the thing I love. It just means I do it in a different perspective. But I wouldn't have had that awareness if I wasn't practicing yoga. Mm-hmm. I would keep on doing the things I was doing. Mm-hmm. Or like have that sadness or that anger towards the fact that I couldn't keep doing the thing that I wanted to do.
Right. I think, I don't know, I just kind of have a realization. It's like going from a life where you think you need to be overstimulated all the time to like choosing being understimulated sometimes. Like I need to just do an hour-long yoga session to like calm down. I've had a really crazy week. And I feel like it's really easy nowadays for people to like grab more stimulation to distract them from this crazy work life or anything else. So yeah.
Or even just same example where you're overstimulated all the time. You're always expected to do something, but to use yoga as a way to use up some of that stimulation, use that energy, and to kind of burn it off, so it's not being built up in your body for the rest of the day, the rest of however much time, and it being expended somewhere else in stress.
Yeah.
Your kids, your work, it comes out somewhere else where it can just be, let me focus on yoga and burn it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that, like, I don't have time question. Like, we live these crazy lives. I don't have time to do yoga or things like that. But you can almost use yoga or a practice like that as a heuristic to recharge yourself to go handle that crazy life. Would you guys agree?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, let's talk about some upcoming locations. I know we talked about the Mount Carmel location, but do you guys have like regular places you guys go that people could catch you guys, or do you guys have a place where you post the upcoming locations?
Yeah, so we have a pretty consistent schedule, and we try to keep it consistent so that folks know where they can come meet us any time of the year. So our current classes in Colorado Springs, or how far you want me to go from Colorado Springs?
We have listeners nationwide, so go ahead.
So I'm not going to list all 40 classes.
Yeah, for sure.
But to give like a rundown here, and then I'll give a couple options beyond that. So we do serve the whole military community. So what that means is we serve folks on bases as well as families and dependents of service members, people who are obviously retired or veteran status as well. So that might mean, like Dennis, he comes and practices with his wife. So if you're listening, you're like, oh, I don't think I'll do this without my partner. Great. Bring your partner along. They are absolutely welcome. Our classes here in Colorado Springs, we have 4 that are more public facing, which means, again, it's really just for this community, but it's folks who just are around and want to go to yoga who are in that community. And that would be in, let's say we'll start on Sundays. So we have Mount Carmel, 8:30 in the mornings. And then on Monday nights, we have a class at Cambio Studio, their Austin Bluffs location, at 5:30 in the afternoon. We have a sober veteran and military community class over at the Serenity Recovery Connection building on Tuesday afternoons at 4 or 4:30. And then Thursday evenings, we are over at the Air Force Academy. So those are our more available ones. And then we have a lot of classes out on base and stuff for specific units like 10th group. So 10th group folk, come on over.
If you can get those guys to do yoga consistently, I will applaud you. Because they probably need it the most. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they tell me I'm crazy.
They do. And we do get quite a few folks, but we could always get a couple more. So that's our Colorado Springs location. And then we have some classes out in Denver area on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 7 p.m. And then Saturdays, 8 a.m. right now. So, and that keeps going and going. But all of this information can be found on our website, which is comebackyoga.org.
Comebackyoga.org.
Yep.
And I was on there this morning and a little bit yesterday. You guys have a ton of teachers.
We do.
So you guys have teachers all over Colorado, right?
We do. And what's great about that is sometimes the thing that didn't go well in a yoga class was that the teacher wasn't the right fit for you, or the style wasn't the right fit for you. So if you go to one class and you're like, that was okay, maybe go check Patty's class out and see how that one is.
You guys are very unique in the yoga industry as a whole. Do you guys have like a pet peeve about the yoga industry? I feel like that'd be a fun question to ask you guys. Let's hear it. Patty's nodding.
Thinking of how I want to language this. I think that I'll speak to my own experience. So I think personally, I have seen and continue to see I will use the word harm that some mentalities carried by, it can be specific lineages of yoga. By lineage, I just mean like a style of yoga. It can be certain studios or chains that doesn't, I'm really thinking of the push through it mentality and the more is better and push through your pain and really ignore the signals your body is giving you for the sake of achieving, X pose, a really advanced looking pose. And I just question the wisdom of holding space for people to engage with their bodies in that way. And the caveat here is that that's what some people love, right? And that's what some people are ready for. That's what feels beneficial for some people. So again, I just really want to offer, this is just like a very, very personal lens, and this won't feel true for everyone, but I think that I see physical harm occurring, so that a lot of injury occurring in spaces where there is it could be a disregard for the limits of the students' bodies, or even just not knowing what a teacher doesn't know.
Sure.
Right. And that's very real. That's real in a lot of spaces, but I see that being still occurring in yoga spaces sometimes. And I think that there can be, certainly not all spaces, but I've seen in some spaces a mentality set that suggests that there's only one way to do this. There's a right way and a wrong way. And if you're not doing it and it looks exactly like this, then you're doing it wrong. And again, those just aren't spaces that feel like they don't feel supportive to me. And I also have met people who have engaged with yoga in that way, maybe for their first class. I'm like, whoa, that sucked. I did not want to do that again. Like that did not feel good. It's like, oh, no, but there's so much more than that. It can look so different. It doesn't have to look like that, And then there can be a sense of closed off to the thing for, months or years after the fact. And again, everyone's on their own journey, and everyone's experience is going to look different, and everyone needs different things. So that's a very, very personal, like Patty lens on that question.
Sounds like
true for everyone.
Ego-driven yoga. That kind of, I don't know.
I can see everyone in the circle kind of like nodding a little bit, like, yeah, maybe. And I think, that's language I would use. I would call it that, but that's also going to be in pretty much any space where a human is, right? You know, that's not a yoga thing; it's a human thing. I would say so.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just accounting for that.
I think you can. That was well said. You can like categorize everything you do into like people who are doing it for one reason or another, and it's those two reasons. So, the Army is a great example. How fast and how far can you run with how much weight on your back? Or are you going to take your time, stretch before, wear the right shoes, come in a little behind everyone, but I'm healthy. Well, cool.
Dennis, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you of like, I think it sounds like the present moment is really valuable for you in the practice, and you've given a couple of examples of how and why, but I'd love to maybe hear how yoga is for you. Like, what keeps you coming back?
Oh boy. I guess for me, what keeps bringing me back is just, it kind of goes back into getting that structure back. I have something to do, and having that time slot of early in the morning, it allows me to start my day right. So to speak, I'm able to do this one thing that really is going to help me physically and mentally, and it's allowing me to focus on just a practice that's right there in front of me, and then when I leave practice, I'm able to like, okay, what does the rest of the day, what does the rest of the week can bring me? What can I do? And it's able to just like kind of mold me in a way to where I can start that on Sunday, and then it transfers over to Monday, and then Tuesday, and then it kind of falls on. So it's just something that I can do once a week, and it just starts my week right for me.
Yeah, it's a reset button.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
I think all soldiers, when they get out, need something for structure. Like I don't think I've ever heard of, I have one friend that I can think of, but most people cannot go from military and then just freestyle life. Like, I'm doing what I want, when I want, whenever, like with whoever I want. That's hard for us. Yeah. Especially how much time did you spend in?
9 years.
Yeah, that's a good chunk of your life. I'd imagine over a third at this point. You need that like once a week or every evening, 5:30, I'm going to yoga. So that's awesome that you've been able to find that.
Something that's interesting, Taylor, about your experience is how easy it is for you to, well, let me rephrase that. It is not easy to meditate, but that meditation is kind of where you found another form of anchoring or steadiness. And that for Patty, it's through the movement, and that allows her to get that same kind of mindfulness. And so I think what's great about all of these things, whether it's going for a walk or finding that structure, however you do, to really find those places that allow you to hone in on the here and now, instead of that, whether it's the future thinking or the past thinking, where it really allows you to come back to this moment.
Yeah, I think everyone needs that. Like my story specifically, I told you guys a little bit before, I spent 13 years in special operations, a lot of very rough deployments, but I always describe it. You guys go to concerts or shows at all? Like, you're standing in front of a stage, it's like 100,000 watts, and then you go to your car and like you can still hear it, and it's like I don't know, you just hear like white noise almost. That's kind of how I felt my military career was. I just did all these deployments, very fast paced, very anxious and worried all the time. And then as it came time to get out, well, actually like a year before I got out, I spent time in an office position, made higher rank, and they put you behind a desk. It's just what happens naturally. And I just had a hard time sitting there. Like I had to go to these meetings where people are caring about stuff I don't care about, and I had to just answer emails, and I didn't know how to like turn that volume down. I still don't, but meditation is the closest I can come to that. So I still, like I always say, like all of us, we get like addicted to adrenaline. So I still dirt bike, I still skydive, I still do all these things, but I have to like ground myself at least once a day, usually multiple times a day. So I try and start my day with a meditation. I definitely end my day with one, or else I won't be able to fall asleep usually. So yoga, definitely a good alternative for that, I would imagine. So I'm sure there's a bunch of military listening, and it's hard, you know, we're like these go-getter dudes in the military. We don't want to admit we need to like calm down and just handle what's going on inside for a couple minutes a day. But that's why I said, if you can get those 10th group dudes to do that, I applaud you. They need it the most.
And I promise you they're doing it. So
yeah, I believe it.
If that helps any of the listeners be like, oh, if 10th group's doing it, well, they're doing it. Promise.
Army
Every
Special
week.
Operations is doing yoga. That's cool.
Yeah. And then I also think, like, just to name one aspect, we've talked about trauma-informed yoga and what that means. But really what it is it's people-informed yoga, right? Because we've all lived lives that are tough at times. So whether it is because of your service, or whether it's because of something that happened outside of service, or when you were a kid, or whatever, like we've all lived life that's hard. And so when we come to the room, it's not like we're going to be talking about trauma the whole time. We don't talk about it at all. When you come to the room, we're going to do yoga, we're going to stretch, we're going to move your body, breathe, and hopefully find a little bit of peace of mind at the end of it all.
Why don't people like find value in that? I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe I have a weird perspective of most people, but I don't know. You tell people they can spend 10 minutes a day doing yoga or meditation, and it seems like a waste of time. It just seems like a shame. I don't know.
I think it's one of those things that you got to feel the benefit to really get. And so if it's something that's so outside of the stuff you're doing normally, it's like, well, why would I do this weird thing over here? And let's be real. Some of the yoga poses we do are weird. We don't do a lot of the crazy shit, but sorry. We don't do a lot of the crazy stuff, but we do things that are probably not your normal way of moving through the world. And so that takes a bit of, I would say, courage to say, this is something different and weird, and I'm going to go try it anyways.
Identity diversification. I think you need to have a lot of different things you're doing. In case one starts to lack, you can push the gas on something else, and yoga is just one of those things. Patty, go ahead.
This is something I really wish was talked about more, so I'm going to chime in here. I really wish that we had conversations about why it's so hard to take time for oneself to do these practices, and I just want to name and normalize that. I know for me personally, I know a lot of people like this. If you were, like, just easy example here, if you were, let's say, raised in a household where neither parent or caregiver, if you had both caregivers, were modeling what it looked like to rest and take time for themselves, I think even just not having that as a part of your developing lens for how the world works or what your place is in the world as we're growing and developing, can really impact how we perceive taking time for ourselves throughout the lifespan, right? And if we perceive that as something to be A, worthy of our time, B, does it even feel safe to my body to do that? And so I think a lot of people ask themselves that question, like, well, why aren't I interested in taking these 10 minutes, going to that class? Why does this feel so hard for me? I think it's really easy. I know, speaking for myself, I used to feel a lot of shame around that. I'm like, I know it could probably be good for me. I know I'll probably feel better when I do it. I have felt better when I've done it. So why do I have so much resistance to still doing it? I think it's a much more complex conversation than willpower. And I know for me, and I know this of myself and others too, people I work with, like there's a narrative that sounds like, oh, I'm lazy, or why can't I just get it together? And there's a lot of self-judgment and criticism when we can't or have it or find it really difficult to interact with that new thing. But again, I think it's just important to remember that, like, if your nervous system and body hasn't seen that it's safe to do it, haven't had models to show you that it's an accessible option, it's not going to likely feel very easily accessible. And just being patient with that, and even just knowing that that's actually a very normal way that the body protects itself from the unknown and things that aren't Yeah, just the unknown, and just having awareness that like, oh, that's actually a physiological protection. A lot of the time, it's not that I don't have enough willpower or drive. It's just that my body doesn't know how to do this in a way that feels safe. I just wish that were talked about more and normalized more.
You've come a long way from walking out of a yoga class. How did you
definitely.
make that feel more normal to you?
I think Cole tapped on it earlier. I think it's just the discipline piece is there, right? Because if I don't have a container or a framework to know that I am expecting to continue to engage with this, now I'm just relying on my own decision making in a day that may feel busy, or a week that may feel busy, a month that feels busy. So if I can just plot it out in my schedule, a month through, schedule all my classes or my time on my personal schedule, then I just have to show up, right? So that takes out the pressure of decision making in the moment. But really, I think for me, what changed that was having done it consistently enough to experience what Cole was describing, that, oh, wow, I feel so much better on days when I do this. My mental clarity is significant. My sense of being grounded and being less easy to get distracted and to follow through on my tasks is significantly improved. My ability to feel like I can connect with others and really hear them and listen to them rather than just I'm seeing their mouth moving and I'm taking in a few words, I'm not taking all of it in. The quality of life improved so much when I began to do this consistently, but I had to just do it at first. I know there's in addition to what Cole suggested for our YouTube channel, the Comeback Yoga YouTube channel, if you're someone who needs a little more accountability than that, and perhaps paying for yoga classes doesn't feel as accessible as you'd like it to be, another website I personally use, it's called Yoga, so www.yogainternational.com. I think it's $19.99 a month. And one of the new features they just rolled out is you can actually, they have like over 2,000 classes you can pick from, all manner of style and teacher and intensity, and you can actually schedule them into your Google Calendar. So they have everything from 3-minute long classes to 120-minute long classes. They have breath work, they have meditations on there. It's kind of the full package deal. So if you're someone who just has a hard time self-motivating to like, just count yourself to do it, I really like that they have a way to integrate that into your calendar. That's huge for me. That's actually really, really helpful for me in my personal practice.
Yeah, that's really cool. And there's something behind like paying for something. Like even though it's not a lot, it kind of holds you a little more accountable. It seems silly. Like things should be free, resources should be free. But if I'm paying $20 a month for something, I'm more obligated probably to do it. But it sounds like you just kind of made it part of your life. Yoga has become part of your life. And I think things fail, like a diet or an exercise program. People don't make it a part of their life, but you schedule a month out, all your classes, it's now a part of your next month. So that's really cool.
Yeah, kind of going back into what you were saying, it's I think you need that accountability. And the way I get my accountability is my wife when she joins us in our practice. And that getting that accountability, I think it's a little bit easier to kind of find because you have your spouse, you can bring your kid, you can bring one of your parents, and it's not just a veteran for combat yoga. It's anyone in their community, anyone in the household. So bring somebody along with you. So when you don't want to go and they want to go, you're going to end up going. So have that outside force, like you said, making the payments and whatnot, but having that other person there with you, it allows you to kind of no, I don't want to say no to you in your face, so I'll just go. I'll just do it. And like you're not being, I don't want to say you're going to be forced to do the yoga, but I mean, you're doing yoga. It's not that forceful. You'll be all right. So having that accountability partner, same thing with the military. When you had a battle buddy, you had somebody, your gym partner or whatever, your spotter, whatever you wanted to do, you had somebody else there. You had somebody else there to kind of keep you accountable, make sure that you're doing the right thing. And the right thing here is just get started and get it going.
Accountability partners are huge. Like PT. I don't want to go to PT. There's going to be 45 dudes there waiting for me. If I'm not there, they're going to know and make fun of me probably. Accountability partners.
And I would say some of our most dedicated students, it also has become their main group of people too, right? Like some of them may not even like yoga and they're still coming because they're there because their buddy decided to come with them and that's their check-in for the week.
Or even you make friends there.
Yeah.
It starts to grow out there.
Yeah. Anytime you have a common ground with a group of people, you're going to make friends for sure. That's why it's important to have hobbies.
And it's why we keep it to the military community, right? Because walking into a yoga studio with a bunch of 25-year-old chicks who can all put their toes behind their head, that maybe doesn't feel great if that's not where you're at with your practice.
I cannot touch my toes. I'm going to physical therapy, and that's actually my discharge criteria. They make fun of me every time. Like, when you can touch your toes, because I go for low back pain. My low back's just so tight, probably from rucking. And yeah, so I'm just I'm on a journey to touch my toes. Thought I'd share that. Well, we always tell a story on the Veterans Voice, so I'd like to open it up to you, Dennis, but you guys can also follow suit with any story you guys want that would either touch, some of our listeners through inspiration or emotion, anything along those lines. So
Yeah. So one of the last units I was in before leaving the military, it was a 3-star command. So a lot of senior folks, senior enlisted, senior officers, GOs, general officers. So a lot of older people. And I was there when I was 30. So I was on the younger side. But there was the general officer that was in charge. He started this little program where it was like, okay, everyone here does PT on their own. Great, it's fine. But I wanted to add something. So he started this little events, monthly events, where he would plan out an obstacle course within the command footprint. So he would do, I only did it once and never again because I found out how insane he was. But you would go from like building to building, area of the command, and there was these different obstacle courses there. So you had pull-up bars, you had a rope climb, you had different beams you had to balance and jump over, crawl under, and tire flips and kettlebells. And I remember the one morning that I did it and seeing everybody out there doing it, and then seeing him do it. He's just kicking A. He's doing it all, and then his staff is doing it all. And these are, again, I was 30 at the time, and then seeing this guy who's in his 50s and his staff that's in the 40s and stuff, and they're just, I saw him climbing up the rope, and it was a rope maybe 20, 30 feet high, and I just saw him up there. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to risk trying to fall on the sand and bust up my back. But I mean, just being able to see somebody else do it, and at that level and at that age, really, it made me feel like, okay, right now my body hurts and stuff, and I got to work around different things. He definitely has things that he has to work around at his age and the amount of time that he spent in the military and doing different things. But he's still able to do it. Mm-hmm. So that kind of put into me like, okay, I just need to figure out what I need to do physically. What are my limitations? What can do, what I can't do, what can I work on, what can I push myself on, and kind of work from there. And seeing him and all of his staff, the men and women that were all there, seeing all those folks do it, I was like, okay, age is but a number. My mentality is what I really need to focus on it to be able to push myself even further, push myself to the next limit, to not just be someone who, like I said, my profession is cybersecurity, not just a cybersecurity guy, but I want to be a fit cybersecurity guy, a healthy cybersecurity guy, or a healthy father, healthy husband. And it gives me this light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I don't have to be sedentary because of my career or whatever I'm doing right now. I can continue on and being the physical specimen that I was in my 20s in the Army.
Mm-hmm. 30 is that age where you start thinking about that. I feel like, I don't know, I just turned 31, but last year when I was getting out of the military, I was like, my back hurts, my knee hurts, my neck hurts. I got to start taking care of myself if I want to keep running and doing all this stuff. Yep. So, yeah.
I think it's like once you slow down, especially when you separate from service, that's when you finally get to slow down and you're like, oh, that hurts. Mm-hmm. You start finding new things that hurt. Yeah. And it hurts a little bit more because you're not, running every day for PT, or you're not doing these different events. You're not waking up and moving every single, hour. You got to get up and run to this office and go to this person, or go down on the range. And so you really start to slow down, and you start to feel and the aches and pains that are starting to come in.
Can't stop me if I never slow down. That's my mentality right now. You guys got any cool stories?
So this year we've actually started meeting veterans where they are in prison. And so we are actually doing workshops throughout the Colorado correctional facilities. And our most recent go of this, we had a group of 15 veterans who were all practicing with us, and they had either been practicing for a long time or for just a couple months, or wherever they had been on their yoga experience. And one of them wrote us a letter afterwards and shared that if he had had the tools that he had found in yoga, and he had learned to breathe and understand how his nervous system worked, that he knew he wouldn't be where he was. and to be able to own his own mistakes and be able to share that this is where he's at. And then also to say, now I have these tools so that I can do better and do different next time. And I'd love to say that that was just the one unique case, but I feel like every time we go in, there is somebody who has had a similar experience where they have this aha of learning about themselves better and being able to choose different.
Yeah, and how many people are experiencing that but not even letting you know?
Yeah.
You're touching all kinds of people, I'm sure.
Hopefully. That's the goal.
Patty, you got any cool stories?
Nothing comes to mind right
that's
away.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. Dennis, Patty, Cole with Comeback Yoga. I really appreciate you guys coming on the Veterans Voice podcast. Biggest takeaway, Mount Carmel, Sunday mornings at 8:30.
That's right.
I think we have like 32,000 listeners right now. I want to see everyone there. Can you imagine?
Dennis is going to have a lot of new friends.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's funny. All right. Well, yeah, thanks again on behalf of our whole team in Mount Carmel. Thanks for coming on the Veterans Voice podcast. And we'll have you guys on a couple months from now. Probably build a relationship between then. You guys can make fun of my tightness when I'm doing downward dog.
We expect to see you when you're not camping.
Oh, yeah, I'll be there. All right. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Big stay.
Thank you.
The Veterans Voice podcast is supported by Medicare Mentors. When it's time to consider your Medicare options, it's time to talk with Medicare Mentors. Medicare Mentors, powered by Spark, is veteran-owned and a long-standing partner with Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center. More than that, they go above and beyond to make sure when you need them, they're there lending a helping hand. Medicare Mentors, always above and beyond. Visit MedicareMentorsLLC.com for more information.